Hello everyone. It's quite late, but I wanted to make sure I gave you a message, and I'm not going to keep you very long. I got thinking about life and the circumstances that we find ourselves in at times. And I wanted to ask you, have you ever been stuck between a rock and a hard place? And for some of you, that answer is yes. And for others, it's, I feel like I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there yet. And fortunately for some, it's no, I haven't been in that situation. And for some of you, it might be a job that creates incredible stress or challenges. And you are, hi Mr. Penn, I see you, thank you for coming on. Appreciate your time. For some of you, it's trying to determine what you are going to do about this job that creates a lot of stress for you, and you really feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. For some, it's a business. It's a business that feels like another job. It's a business that's really creating more challenges than rewards. And you might be wondering, is this where I need to be? For others, it's maybe a decision you need to make around your child. There's nothing like the love that one has for one's child. And if there is a life or death issue, maybe it's a very serious medical issue, and you just feel like whatever you choose, you're going to be between a rock and a hard place. Have you been there? I know I've been there, and life brings with it so many challenges at times, so many ups and downs. And the one thing that I often talk about is resiliency, right? It's being able to bounce back and get through and get past the things that come our way in life. And sometimes we are physically and emotionally and spiritually and mentally unable to do that by ourselves, or at least we think so. And I'm going to share with you some things that might help you if you feel that way. For others, it might be that you are in a bad marriage. If you've ever been through a divorce, you know what that can be like. Not fun, you know, nothing you ever want to do again, at least for some. I mean, I have friends who have done that more than once. I don't know how they could do that, but you do what you have to do. And for others, it's a bad relationship. And whatever it is, when there is a connection between two people and things have gone awry, that can be difficult on a number of fronts. And so whatever decision you need to make and whatever ties you still have, you know, it can feel like I'm just between a rock and a hard place, and it's difficult, right? Well, whatever those circumstances might be for you, what are you going to do about that? The other thing I think of is seniors, the seniors in our lives, the ones who leave us with such wisdom and stories and things that we can fill our lives with. And sometimes they have to choose between food and medicine. That's not a great place to be, but so many seniors have that decision to make on a daily basis. What would you do if you are faced with any of those or something else, and you're faced with this decision that no matter what direction you move into, it's not a good one. It just still creates a lot of challenges. What would you do in an emergency? Have you thought about it? Do you have an emergency plan? Have you been through something that's required you to make those decisions and just, you know, count the cost and just keep going regardless of what happens? Sometimes we don't think about that part of life, but it's good to be prepared. We can't always really anticipate or prepare for events in our lives, but if we can have some degree of preparedness, that would be a good thing. I want to share with you a real life story of someone who was literally stuck between a rock and a hard place. His name is Aron Ralston, and some of you might know about his story. This was back in 2003. he was an avid mountain climber, mountaineer. He just loved rock climbing and very adventurous outdoorsman. And he would go very often to very remote parts of the country and just spend some quiet time climbing rocks. And what happened one afternoon when he was climbing through a canyon in Utah, in a very remote part of Utah, and if you've been out in Utah, it's absolutely beautiful, lots of mountains and valleys and everything. It's just a great part of the country. Well, he was out there in one of the canyons, and as he was descending, as he was coming down, one of the boulders got dislodged and came down on him, and it crushed his left hand and then rolled over and really smashed and severely crushed his right hand. And so his right hand was up against the wall as this rock was holding him in place. And he was able to free his left hand, and now wondering, all right, what do I do? How do I try to free myself? And so he spent the next 5 days trying to free himself. He didn't tell anybody what he was doing, so no one knew where he was. He was out hiking and climbing, and not his family or friends, nobody knew what was going on or where he was. And there was no one searching for him. So he assumed that he would die. If there was no intervention and no intervention quickly, he would just stay there and die. And so he decided he would try to extend his life for as long as possible, just in case someone found him. So he had some water and he had a little bit of food, 2 burritos. And he sipped very, very slowly on that water and the burrito, and he decided to just use the little bit of energy that he had to free himself. But as it turned out, the rock that crushed him was about an 800-pound boulder, and there was no way that he could free his right hand at all, but he sure did try. And after about the 4th day, he realized this is not working. This is definitely not going to work out. And he's now dehydrated, he's delirious, he's hallucinating, he's just not himself. And so he prepared to die. He said, this is it, I'm just going to stay here and die. So he thought for a moment, he said, but hold on, wait a minute, maybe I can amputate my arm and free myself. And he started making some exploratory cuts. I couldn't even imagine what that's like, to do exploratory cuts on yourself just to see if you can free your arm and still nothing happens. And then he thought, you know, in order for this to happen, I have to break my bones, and I really have no tools that can do that. And he decided, okay, I'm just going to be calm and go to sleep and never wake up. And so when he woke up the next morning, he was quite shocked. He thought, for sure, this is it. And so he prepared to die. He carved his name and date of birth and the day he was going to die into a rock, and just continued. Now he had no water, so he's sipping on his urine. You do what you got to do, right? He's just sipping on his urine, trying to stay alive. And he falls asleep, and then the next morning he wakes up and he has this idea. He has this, oh my gosh, if I go ahead and amputate my arm, I can free myself. And he got this vision of seeing a little boy run into him. He had no children, but he saw this vision of having a son one day. And he got the courage and strength and went ahead and cut his arm off. Now, that is some serious determination to gain freedom, to live in spite of being stuck between a rock and a hard place. And even after that incredible feat that he had to do, an accomplishment, he still had to get down the mountainside and get to his vehicle. He had to go down about 65 miles and then walk about 8 miles to his car, and it was hot. The hot midday sun was beaten down upon him, and he lost about 40 pounds in the process. He thought for sure he would not make it, but God is good. He had his hand on his life still. And as he's going through to his car, he saw a family vacationing, and they offered him some Oreos and some water, and they called for help. And 4 hours after amputating his arm, he received medical intervention, and he said, if I'd only done it sooner, I would not have survived. When we think about the measures that Aaron went through to free himself and to live, are we willing to take those measures? Freedom is such an incredible human quest. We want to ensure that we have freedom to think and to live as we need to, and to do things with our families. For some of us, it's gaining that time freedom, gaining financial freedom, having the freedom to practice our religious beliefs as we want to. For many people outside of the United States, where freedom is not something that is made available as we experience here, they would do anything to escape and come into these great United States in order to experience freedom, even at the risk of their life, even though they think they might very well die in the process of sneaking into a vessel, a ship, or something trying to get here. They do it in spite of the risk, in spite of having to cut off limbs, in spite of having to cut off family, in spite of not knowing what's going to happen when you hit the shores of freedom. But you do what's needed, that incredible drive and push to be free, to be removed from the place that seems just cold and dismal and between a rock and a hard place. You do what you need to do to make that happen. And Aaron did something that was incredibly remarkable. I mean, all he had was a dull 2-inch knife. So you could imagine what was involved in cutting off his arm. Are we willing to take those measures, whether it's literally or figuratively? Are we willing to take those measures to cut off what's needed to be cut off so that we can be free? And whatever your answer is, or maybe you're not able to answer now, I just want you to think about that. Just contemplate on that for a bit, whether it's the rest of the evening or into the weekend or whatever it is. What's freedom worth to you? When you are stuck between moving forward and your mind is just not able to comprehend all that's going on around you, what are you willing to do to just release yourself from that place of bondage, from that place of just being under that 800-pound boulder that keeps you stuck against the walls of your life? Are you willing to do whatever it takes to get the necessary help and intervention so that you can be free, so that I can be free, so that we can be free together? I would love to know what your thoughts are and what your answers are. After you've come up with it, come back and drop a line here for me. I'd love to hear from you. But I'm going to leave you with those thoughts. Think about Aaron. Think about the determination that he had and what propelled him forward. Even if it meant drinking his own urine, even if it meant slowly cutting into his arm and breaking his bones, even if it was, I'm going to free myself for a few moments and I may never make it to my truck to get home, to get help, but just for a few moments of knowing that I was able to release myself from what was keeping me from living, I would do it. My prayer and hope for you is that you find the right answers that fit your life and that can continue to move you forward. And it's not going to be easy, but I promise you it's going to be worth it. Have a great evening. Love on your family. Just hold those that are near and dear to you. Let them know what they mean to you, how special they are. Life is so full of unexpected events and things that can turn your life upside down in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, really. So just cherish the moments that you have with those you love, the opportunities that are before you, that God has put in your way, that He has blessed you with. Take advantage, full advantage of those opportunities. Give roses to those you love and those who mean something to you while they can appreciate it and smell it. And cherish those around you so that if you are ever stuck between a rock and a hard place, you can have those important pieces of your life to propel you out of it and move forward. May God bless you and pour blessings upon those you love and care about as well. Take care. Have a good night, everybody.